It's no secret that the later levels of a Dungeons & Dragons campaign can really fall off the rails. Once you hit 12th level and beyond, the amount of options that players have to choose from often vastly outweighs what most enemies will be able to throw at a given party. This is obviously not universally true, as a DM can scale things more appropriately or try to influence balance in a more meaningful way for a high-level group, but the premise does still stand. It is much harder to challenge a high-level party than a low or mid-level one. This is particularly true for combat, where at higher levels, each encounter can feel tedious, stale, and non-threatening. This is where the latest supplement from Lone Colossus Games, Injuries and Vile Deeds, comes in. While I was provided with a copy of this supplement, this is not a sponsored video. I am choosing to make this video because I think that Injuries and Vile Deeds is a fantastic addition to any DM's arsenal, particularly if you're running a game in the higher levels, as it provides some amazing options for delivering a credible threat to your group and allowing them to interact with enemies in ways they probably never have before. One of the best aspects of D&D 5e is simply how intuitive it is. I typically tell every new player that I have, if you can think of it, you can probably at least try it. But outside of a few niche scenarios involving called shots, that doesn't typically apply in combat. Unless your DM allows it and has come up for a system for enabling these types of moves, being a barbarian and swinging to attempt to cut a hand off just doesn't actually have any additional impact on the game. But what if it actually did have impact, and what if you didn't have to come up with these systems all on your own or figure out what various DCs to apply? Well, that is where Injuries and Vile Deeds shines. This supplement allows a player to target the specific attacks, defenses, special attacks such as breath weapons, senses, or even movement of a given enemy to oppose some additional impairment onto it beyond mere damage. There are various tiers of injuries based on the enemy's max hit points and the amount of damage doled out in a single round, and some of these can even linger for extended periods of time. Looking at this table, we can see that there are 3 tiers of injuries that can be inflicted towards an enemy or NPC: Handicap, Disabled, and Maimed. Each tier of injury carries with it an increasing penalty on the creature in question. For example, when attacking, you can target something specific such as a hand, resulting in affecting the weapon attack, and depending on how much damage is dealt, the injury inflicted can be worse. Using this as an example, the handicap option would impose disadvantage on the next weapon attack, disabled would remove the damage modifier or damage dice if no modifier exists, and maimed would remove a natural weapon attack entirely or prevent a two-handed weapon attack from functioning altogether. These injuries can be severe and can have significant impacts on how an encounter ultimately plays out. Some other examples include reducing a creature's movement by half, increasing the recharge of an ability by 1 step, blinding a creature beyond 30 feet, or granting vulnerability to a particular damage type. The list does go on, but you'll have to pick up the supplement to get the full picture. Now, like most things in D&D, this is not a one-way street. If you can do something to a monster, they can probably do something similar to you, and this is no exception. There are a few additional damage thresholds here, helping cement the heroic nature of these rules. However, the injuries are still quite impactful and will certainly force a PC to consider their actions or even some alternatives. For example, a minor setback may bump your turn in the initiative order to the bottom of the round, or a mid-level injury may give the player a negative modifier on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws. Some more serious examples of injuries can increase the DC of a death saving throw or even provide immediate levels of exhaustion, which can be extremely crippling. The text also includes mechanics for lingering injuries and how a player or monster might be able to overcome these via immediate threat or even over the long term while resting. I have barely scratched the surface of what this supplement can actually enable for a game should your group start to use it. These rules provide so much additional depth and consideration to your game that it will completely change the way that you play. In addition to all the mechanical inclusions that Injuries and Vile Deeds provides, it also includes a number of very well detailed NPCs or enemies that can be used in any campaign with a staggering amount of accompanying lore. The stat blocks even include the injury thresholds, which is a really nice piece of attention to detail. While I think it's fairly clear that I am a really big fan of this supplement, I do think that there are some ways it could be even better. While I am generally not a fan of critical fumble tables, which I know are rather popular, and to be clear, this is absolutely not just a critical fumble table. In general, I do find that these tables add a level of complexity to the game which is not met by the value that they actually bring to a table. Rolls on crit fumble tables are extremely swingy and can nearly, or even completely in some cases, end a character's career on the spot. There are some more restrained versions of these tables, but I simply am just not a fan. This book is a significant improvement on that. I actually do think that the added complexity here is justified by the dimensionality and realism that it can bring to a game, but that just might not be for everyone. High-level encounters can already take a very long time. Players just have so many abilities or spells to consider, and this just adds one more thing to have to think about. I'm not saying that that's actually a bad thing though. In fact, I am sure that for many this can be a wonderful thing, but it definitely is a consideration to me. The only other thing I believe that can really be improved upon in this text is that I think it feels a little bit too easy to actually make these attacks, and unless I'm missing something, there's not really any reason why you wouldn't do it every single round. Identifying an aspect to a target comes as a free action, and there's seemingly no downside to doing it every single turn. Again, I know this is in some capacity offset by the fact that creatures can do this against you too, but it still feels like there should be some sort of sacrifice, however small, made to accomplish the actual injury. Maybe going for one leaves you vulnerable for a round so attacks against you have advantage, or maybe they lower your AC by amount. In any case, Lone Colossus Games is very clear that these are playtest rules, so feel free to mix and match as you please. Whether you include some or all of these rules or even just a few of the creatures, I really think that this is a fantastic supplement to pick up, and I highly recommend it. It is very clear that a lot of hard work has been done by some very caring and passionate people, and that translates very, very well into this text. I'll leave a link to it in the description if you'd like to grab a copy for yourself. I have no doubt that whether you're running a high-level campaign or even just starting from first level, using these rules will really improve the quality of your game and create new experiences that you didn't even realize you were missing at your table.